Joining us now is Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. He's a Republican out of the 19th District of Florida. He's on several committees, including Oversight and Accountability and Financial Services, and tweets at Byron Donalds. Congressman Donalds, welcome back to the show. How are you?
How you doing, Laura? It's good to be back with you.
I'm glad that you're on the show today. A lot of things going on, particularly in your home state. Obviously, I know you're a member of Congress, but I'm wondering what your reaction has been. There's now a new 6-week abortion ban out of the state of Florida that Governor DeSantis has now signed. He's saying that we are proud to support life. What's been your reaction and that of your constituents?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. One, after after the Dobbs decision, what's really happened is you've seen democracy in action. Every state legislature has decided, what's going to work for them. Obviously, we know some states have had trigger laws that went into effect. And so I think the legislature went through a very deliberate process about trying to design what abortion was going to look like in our state. And so, it's a 6-week ban overall. There are exceptions for rape, incest, health of the mother, life of the mother, and I believe human trafficking is the other exception. And so, what's going to take place is, the people of Florida are going to, take that into their calculus and go from there. I mean, look, at the end of the day, abortion is obviously the most personal, and it's really an emotional procedure when a woman has to go through it. But also what our state is trying to do is balance that versus the life of the unborn child and trying to bring them both into balance. And I think we probably achieved that in Florida.
Do you think that at the congressional level, I mean, obviously the Supreme Court has returned the issue to the states under Dobbs. Now, obviously with the mifepristone case, the Supreme Court's likely to hear it again on an administrative law issue about whether to defer to the FDA or not. But do you see a time like this where Congress takes a step to try to codify its laws in this issue, or is this going to remain in the states?
No, I think the Dobbs decision was pretty clear, and I think this is where a lot of misconception in politics, frankly, in campaigns. A lot of gaslighting has been done about this. In Congress, we're not looking at doing anything with abortion because it's not a federal issue anymore. What the Supreme Court did in overturning Roe was actually return this issue to the states, frankly, where it does belong, because every medical procedure in our country is regulated at the state level, not at the federal level. And so it is the appropriate place to regulate it. I don't foresee Congress getting involved in abortion. That's something the state legislatures and governors, along with their citizens, are going to work out in their state to figure out where the 50 laboratories of democracy, where they want to land on this issue.
We'll see how the Democrats, I mean, they obviously have pushback at the congressional level on this very issue, but I am still curious, I mean, aside from the issues of, as you describe, abortion, what the FDA ruling will ultimately mean on a larger issue.
If anybody's getting us close to World War III, it's Joe Biden. You couple that with the fact of what's happening at our southern border, which is atrocious. His handling of the border has led to 100,000 Americans dying of fentanyl overdoses because fentanyl trafficking is up 3,000% in the United States since Joe Biden's been president. You look at our inflation, which has hurt so many working families, poor families, seniors on fixed incomes. The issues are endless, and it doesn't have to be this way.
Let me ask you about the issue in terms of World War III. And, I won't focus on Hillary Clinton in terms of what she's had to say. I think that you point out a common statement that's often made, and since she was running for office. Why do you think that Biden puts us in that precarious position?
Number one, I don't think he's respected by world leaders. The fallout from Afghanistan, and I know the White House came out with their little after-action report, which, by the way, the Oversight Committee, we are going to dig into that. But,
when?
In a couple of weeks, actually. I think the hearing's been called. Chairman Comer's called for that hearing. If not next week, it's going to be the week after. But one of the key things that happened after the fall of Afghanistan and how tragic that was for our country and the 13 men and women who lost their lives from our armed services, not to mention the many Afghanis who were supporters of America who had to flee Afghanistan. The fallout of that is what actually pushed Putin to say, you know what, maybe now's the time to go into Ukraine. The Russian army started amassing troops on the Ukrainian border 6 months before the invasion. All of that happened post the fall of Afghanistan. And now we see the saber rattling from China around Taiwan. If you have strong leadership as commander-in-chief in the White House, a lot of these scenarios are really stopped before they start. I would ask you and your listeners this. What was Russia doing when Donald Trump was president? What was China doing when Donald Trump was president? They were not nearly as aggressive as they are right now. And that is because they see weakness in the Oval Office, and they're going to take whatever gains they can get right now. Essentially, you make hay while the sun is shining. And that's what's happening with our adversaries around the globe.
You really think that the reason that Putin acted in Ukraine and invaded it is because he saw a window opportunity because of the Afghanistan withdrawal? That would suggest, Congressman, that he views weakness for every single NATO member country as well.
No, I wholeheartedly think that is the case because that's the troop movement. Troop movements occurred right after the fall of Afghanistan. Those are the facts. So if you're Vladimir Putin and you're watching this debacle happen at Hamid Karzai International Airport, you're watching literally people running on the tarmac trying to hold on to the side of a C-17 to escape the Taliban. Those were the images, Laura. We all saw them. If you're watching that, you're saying to yourself, you know what? Now's my opportunity to get the stuff that I've been trying to get for a long time, because I don't think Joe Biden has the stomach to stand up to what I'm trying to do. And if we're really going to remember history appropriately, Joe Biden offered Vladimir Zelensky a plane ride out of Ukraine. He told him, get on the plane. It was Vladimir Zelensky that said, I'm not leaving. I'm standing up to Russia, and I'm staying in my country. Joe Biden wanted no part of Ukraine. He was forced to take part in Ukraine because you had the people of Ukraine who wanted to fight for their liberty and their independence. And you had people in America, frankly, people in Moscow and people in Berlin were saying, this is wrong. Somebody needs to stand up for Ukraine. And then he had to reverse course at the 11th hour. Those are the facts. So I think Vladimir Putin has understood that. Xi Jinping understands that. And we have to have a commander-in-chief who is prepared to halt these aggressions from our adversaries if we're going to, number one, keep America as the world's global superpower, but then also to keep global peace as much as you can. Also, remember, Donald Trump authorized the Abraham Accords, in his last year in office. This was the first peace deal between so many countries in the Middle East, something that has not happened. That's all fallen by the wayside now. Now you have Saudi Arabia and Iran talking peace deals with China being the arbiter.
But
none of that is a good situation for the United States.
I do hear. I want to interject, though.
Sure.
It is clear Vladimir Putin had his sights on Ukraine during not just this presidency, but also during the prior presidency as well, and the prior and before that. In fact, he has been invested in trying to reclaim what he feels he is entitled to in terms of Ukraine. I do hear you on the point that has been made about you believe that the foreign policy interests would be distinct. But I do wonder what the allies think about that very issue. But let me ask you this before we conclude. I know we are short on time here. There is obviously a cloud over the former president and the fact of indictments. These
indictments appear to be highly political. You have Mr. Matthew Colangelo, the number 3 guy at the Department of Justice at the beginning of the Biden administration, is now in the Manhattan DA's office assisting with this. This is high politics. The indictment is foolishness. Most people, if they read it, would clearly see that. And I will always ask Alvin Bragg, what's actually the federal crime? Because the FEC and even the Department of Justice didn't bring one.
Well, we will have to follow the story. As you know, none of it's going anywhere. Congressman, come back. We'll continue the conversation. I want to hear more of what you have to say. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.